Let me go first to Mr. Flynn. In the research that you've done for CORA, right, Congress on Racial Equality,
Yes.
you state that the majority of crime is done by blacks. And let me ask you, and I don't mean to be confrontational to you, isn't that a little self-serving, you as a white saying that the majority of crime is by blacks on blacks?
Well, my interest in this goes pretty far back. In 1948, I was persuaded by a lady campaigner to join the Progressive Party, which was a pretty radical group. That was my first vote. And
1948. God, you're a lot older than I am.
yeah. And she persuaded me on the basis that that was the best way to fight white racism. And that meeting with Mrs. Paul Robeson has led me to a lifetime of activism against racism.
Both black and white.
Sorry, Mrs. Robeson, that includes black racism.
You state that the majority of crime is done by blacks. Explain
Yeah.
why.
Well, let's start with the national figures. In the United States, in 1986, more murders were committed by blacks, 12% of the population, than were committed by whites, 85% of the population. These are the numbers right here, right out of the Justice Department figures, and you can check them later if anyone has any doubts on that. When you check the murder figures in interracial crime, now interracial means that you have a perpetrator of one race and a victim of another race. When you check those figures, you find, and I'll just get to the conclusion of it, you find that a black in 1984, pre-crack, was over 15 times more likely to murder a white than a white was to murder a black.
What's that say to you, Joe?
That says,
John?
that says that the people who are... Joe was a lot funnier than I am. Joe Flint. That says that the people who are yelling all over the place with demonstrations, stopping court cases, writing articles, dozens of these confrontational articles saying that there is a widespread white violence against blacks are not telling the truth.
Dr. Toote, that's a pretty powerful statement, all right?
Understood why, and I've done television programs around the country.
Just to throw one more statistical vegetable into the stew, consider this. In New York last year, according to Benjamin Ward, and there's no fudging about this, Benjamin Ward, police commissioner, of the murders of blacks, 86% of blacks who were murdered by other blacks. Now think about what that means. Blacks are 25% of the population. 75% of the population is white, so what would you think? You think that 3/4 of the blacks who were murdered, things are just random, would be done by whites and 1/4 by blacks. No, what you find is that about 5.5 or 6 times as many murders of blacks are committed by blacks than by whites. Whites leave blacks alone by a factor of 6. All the murder of blacks is done by whites.
All right. Al, you must have something to say to that. Let me hear from Al.
First of all, knock off the noise and let the guest speak. You can make your noise later. I'll clear the whole damn studio. Now go ahead. First of all, I think Ms. Toote's original point needs to be repeated. Blacks are prosecuted and are prone to be prosecuted more than anybody. So your statistics is based on prosecution. Keep that in mind.
Here's a quote from him, speaking to black lawyers. He says, "Don't take off your shirt and tie and put on a pair of sneakers because you and I could get shot running for a bus." That's exactly the sort of demagoguery.
Oh, wait a second. Bring me that black book. I'm going to use it right now. That's a quote from Charles Wrangell, a black man, right?
Right.
Black leader.
Right.
Shows irresponsibility on the part of a black leader.
I think you could say so.
All right, now let me show you some irresponsibility on the part of some white leaders. All right? Because we got it all over, baby, and that's what's happening. That's what the real problem is.
And then you buy the book.
How about white police officer Shea, who shot and killed a 10-year-old Clifford Glover and said that all he saw was the kid's skin and thought he was a full-grown man? All right? Made that statement, white guy, all right? How about Mr. Justice Thomas S. Arguesta, all right, of the Supreme Court in Queens. He was asked by a black defendant to appoint counsel for him. The justice, speculating that there was a companion of the defendant who had not been found, said, "There's another nigger in the woodpile. Find him first." We have some distinguished and accomplished black leaders with us tonight, and I would say, what should they be doing to bring harmony between blacks and whites, and what can we do about this crime problem? I'll start, Dr. Toote, I'll start first with you.
Well, I think one thing is we ought to talk without that fierce rhetoric that polarizes. And I think Koch is really known for that. There was a time when this city was a city really, of love. We had problems, but not that they're too sensitive now. They're too violent. We got to face what the problems are. And we got to realize that employment is essential, full employment in our communities, whether they're in New York or New Jersey.
Education comes first, Gloria.
Pardon me?
That education's got to be there, too.
Education is a must. But when I call education, maybe somebody's going to get angry. I believe that you should have tracks. You got to have your math. You got to have your geography. You got to have your history. I don't care whether you want to be a contractor. Make lots of money that way, more than some lawyers. But you got to know your basics. And then this country is going to be strong. So what we need to do is be fighting City Hall together, not fighting one another. And this is what disturbs me. I was born in Harlem Hospital, raised in the public schools, 2 law degrees. I live in the same house that my mother and father carried me to from the time I was born. I have seen it with my own eyes go from what was called Strivers Row to ghetto and now back to a very affluent community that is now becoming gentrified. You got to take roots, and you got to believe, and you got to dialogue and take bitterness and color out of any discussion.
Okay, good point. Good point. That is the beginning of a solution. That is the beginning of a solution. Cyail Boynes is joining us. He's a board member of the Congress of Racial Equality. Cyail, any statement you have to make, any comments, and some advice on how we address this problem, not as a black and white problem, but as a problem that is permeating America.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the word solution, because that is what Roy Innes and the Congress of Racial Equality has been about, solutions. We start out by saying, first of all, that 99% of the people, black and white, are decent. And the crime that's committed against us is done by less than 1%. We're doing some research now where we're going to show that the black people that commit crimes against blacks or whites, against whites, first practice on blacks. Then they branch out and commit the crimes against whites. And vice versa. The whites who commit crimes against blacks, they first commit crimes against you. Then they commit crimes against us. You see? So we, the 99% of the decent people...
Solution.
Solution? First of all, we have to recognize that. We have to isolate that small 1%, less than 1%.
We have to stop being afraid that among all of us, there are bastards.
Well, that's right. Bums and bastards. We have to do that. I agree with you. Now, once we've done that, then we have to do something else. We have to look at it on a broad...
Let's not have any hypocrisy about race blindness. These so-called black leaders, whenever they want affirmative action, whenever they want preferences for blacks, everything has got to be broken down statistically. How many blacks got this? How many blacks got that? When it's 0.5% under parity, they start screaming. But when you get the crime statistics, suddenly we don't want to hear about them. We want to have everything racially blind. We don't want to know the facts. Well, the first thing we need is a certain amount of honesty.
You haven't given me the solution
The
yet.
second solution is individual responsibility.
Second, that was the first?
Well, the first solution, let's end affirmative action. Let's, first of all, convince white and black that... Yeah, that's right, because whites are going to be stopped being, first of all, so embittered about getting a short view. And secondly, let's blame not the government, not the whites. Let's blame the black criminals who commit the crime.
Zip it, Reverend.
Bring that. You feel better than that.
Is that the answer?
Reverend, I'm going to let the Reverend have the last word when we come back, because when we come back, we're going to talk to our audience, all right? Stand by. Reverend.
Three things. We need to have equal protection under the law, which takes away the whole racial question. A lot of people that are calling for peace really don't want peace. They want quiet. The price for peace is justice. If everybody that does a crime goes to jail, irregardless of their race and the race of who they did
And for the same amount of time.
then you start equal footing. Then based on that, everyone should go in their community and admit that we have bad people that prey upon people and exploit people of our community and of other communities, and we must do what we have to do to get rid of them. We have tried to do that. Some programs work, some haven't. But we all must try to do what we can do. The third thing is education. We must build an educational system that educates kids and not runs them through the system with a 12th grade education, a 4th grade reading level, a 2nd grade math level, and makes them hoodlums by their own diploma.
All right, now let me go to a lady who was with us, who has written a book, Carol Taylor. She has written this book called The Little Black Book. Carol, give us a little of your background.
Well, I was the nation's first black airline hostess.
Did they
I've
hire you
been-
because you looked white?
Of course they did. They didn't want to bend over. There's racism back then, and there's still racism.
And there's racism in both races, too.
Oh, well, I think you've hit a point, and I love you for it, because I love you, Mort, because you're sexist, racist, chain-smoking dope addict.
You're right.
Okay?
You're right.
And I am racist. All right?
I love you because I love dope.
All right, just shut up and turn black for a minute.
Give him hell.
All right? All right? You didn't hear what I said, Mort. I said, shut up, let me finish, and turn black.
Then say something.
Turn black while I'm talking for a minute, okay? And then you'll know where we are. Okay?
Let her talk. Let her talk. Let her talk. Let her talk. She'll get hers.
Gloria was talking about colorblind. I have to disagree with you because we don't want to be colorblind. Don't deny me my color.
Here is a book of 30 pages, all right? It's a book that should be read by every black and white, all right? Man and woman. Here is a book that Carol is selling for $3. If you're so interested in helping people, why don't you get some black organization, some white organization to buy these and distribute them free? This doesn't cost you $3.
Yes, it does.
Then
you know why?
got swindled.
No.
You got swindled. $3. You go in here. You go in here.
All right. Let me answer that. Or do you want to just pander to these? You want to let me answer?
I don't want to pander to you.
Pander to them?
I don't want to pander to
Well,
you.
I bet you don't.
You
because
bet I
you
don't.
want an answer, do you?
I want an
All right?
answer, but I want you to give me some answers. Give me some answers. You shut up. You shut up. You shut up, lady. Get out of here. She has just given me her IQ score. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of sitting home watching the same old boring television shows? Television is alive again at Channel 9.
Curtis Sliwa. Crime. All right? A bona fide American hero, black or white. Works the subways all the time. Are you worried about black on white, white on black, black on black, white on white crime in the subways? What the hell's the situation there?
Well, listening tonight, if I were black, I'd hate whites more. If I were white, I'd hate blacks more. All we've heard is hate, hate, hate. Guardian angel gentlemen, just stand up real quick. You see the solution. Notice. You notice.
And
black.
our leadership is letting that happen, Curtis.
Right.
They're letting us believe that that's what's going
Morton,
on.
you notice, here's the solution. Black and white working side by side.
No, I see
Not
men and
seeing-
men and men working side by side.
Not seeing the color of any one criminal, but saying, look, if a crime takes place against a white, it's a crime against all of us. Against a black, it's against all of us. I grew up in Brooklyn. I remember groups that used to organize specifically to keep people of color, depending on who you were, out of the community. You think the Golden Guineas let Jewish and Irish guys in? You think the Black Spades let white guys in? They used to organize in the 60s specifically to comb their neighborhood and beat the living daylights out of somebody with color. Crime, sure, blacks are on the lower end of the poverty scale. You're going to see more street crimes coming from them. But we know whites, they're mugging and raping, but in a different way. They're heisting cargo at JFK. Look at John Gotti and Howard Beach. We're all guilty. We're like parents who, when told that our children are doing wrong, violating the teacher's rights using dope, not my kid. Blacks saying not black people. Whites not saying white people. I leave you with this word. Guardian angels, united against all crime. If you're a criminal, white collar, or you're the scum of the earth, if you do the crime, you should do the time. That's simple.